What's going on, everybody? This is Bobby G back again with another Saturday Shpiel. For those of you who might be following the Jewish calendar, today is Parashat Korach, or the Rebellion of Korah, which Dathan, son of Abiram, and Korah, and a few others, let's say, have a very bad ending to their lives. But there's also a couple of lessons to that, along with a few other codes and such, in the book of, I believe it's Leviticus or Numbers, that we're in. If you want to go check that out, that's another thing, but that's another aside. If you want to check your Jewish calendars, you'll find all the readings there for this week. Anyway, moving on. Today's Saturday Shpiel, what I wanted to talk about was with regards to those who follow God and how the good news of God is for all nations, and that it didn't just start in the New Testament. Because a lot of people want to start with either the Gospels, with the Roman centurion, as well as the book of Acts, chapter 15, as well as the Good Samaritan in Luke 10, verses 25 through 37. But interestingly, I think it was a point where Israel, to some degree, was meant to be multicultural in the beginning. And this is just a theory, but hear me out on this. If you go back to 1 Kings, chapter 8, verses 41 and 43. 1 Kings, chapter 8, verses 41 to 43. And this is where Solomon is making his prayer to dedicate the temple. And, you know, he's talking about the blessings and the cursings and all that stuff. And in verse 41 of chapter 8, he says this: "Moreover, concerning the foreigner who is not of your people, Israel, when he comes from a distant country because of your name, for they will hear of your great name, of your mighty hand and your outstretched arm, when he comes to pray toward this house, then may you hear from heaven your dwelling place, and do according to all that the foreigner asks of you, so all the peoples of the earth may know your name, to fear you as your people Israel do, and to know that this house that I have built is called by your name." Isn't it interesting that Solomon's prayer with regards to the temple is not only for the children of Israel to be blessed as they come to worship God, as they come to seek His presence, but also people of other nations that are not of Israel that come to seek God are also to be blessed when they come. Isn't that interesting? Also, here's a note from Exodus 12, verses 37 and 38. And this is during the Exodus. They just had the last plagues and so on, and everything had gone crazy. Pharaoh was going, "Get out!" Saying to the Bnei Israel, "Out with you!" Right? And there's a couple of verses in chapter 12, verses 37 and 38 in the book of Exodus. And this is very, very, very interesting, because I want you to see how this connects to the book of Acts, how this connects to the centurion in the Gospels, how this connects to Acts 2 when everybody from around the world is hearing the good news in their own nations. Check this out. And it is, well, lost my place here. Exodus 12, verses 37 and 38. And it says this: "The Bnei Israel journeyed from Ramses to Sukkot, about 600,000 men on foot, as well as women and children." And here's verse 38. "Also a mixed multitude went up with them, along with the flocks, herds, and heavy livestock." Now in the context, this is again about the Exodus, but notice that verse, in verse 38, where after it says that Bnei Israel left with 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children, it says in verse 38, also a mixed multitude went up with them, along with the flock, herds, and heavy livestock. Who is this mixed multitude? And where are they from? We can't say for certain. We can guess based on the annals of history. This could have been some Egyptians that may have left with the children of Israel. This could have been those from the land of Lud, or what is now today known as Libya. This could have been Cushites who were from the land of Nubia, or what we know today as Sudan and Ethiopia. We don't know. It doesn't say. It just says a mixed multitude. But it's interesting to note that Israel was not the only one that left in the Exodus. Isn't that interesting? Now again, I can't specifically say who that mixed multitude was, but it gives you a sense that there was a very multicultural atmosphere that left Egypt to go to the Promised Land, doesn't it? A little bit? How does this translate to the church today? Well, just like there were people of other nations besides the children of Israel who decided to follow God. And you see that as well in Ruth, because lest we forget, Ruth was not an Israelite. She was a Moabite woman. And she's also the great-grandmother and the great-great-grandmother of King David and King Solomon, respectively. Now, when you look at these things, and you see that there are others who come to join the Lord, doesn't it show that the good news is for everyone? I think it does. I mean, when you look at Moses himself, his wife Zipporah, or Zipporah, depending on your pronunciation. At one point, his brother Aaron and his sister Miriam were not all that happy about the fact that he had married, as it is written, a Cushite woman, or what we know today as a Nubian woman, or a woman who was not of the children of Israel. She was not a Levite. She was a Midianite. And some people, debate how his wife could have been a Cushite and then a Midianite and so on and so forth. But what I'm asking you to think about is how a person's ability to come to God at the end of the day is, first, they are drawn to God as someone who is made in the image and likeness of God. That no matter where we come from, no matter what we've been through, no matter how many trials we've gone through or how many issues we may have with another person who could be a family member, a friend, someone who's a complete stranger, no matter what the situation, God's salvation is for everyone. And He means everyone. Okay? Why am I saying this, and why does it sound like I'm talking like a broken record? Well, when you look at what's going on in our world today, and you see all that's going on, I recently read, for the second time, and I'm almost finished with Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community by Dr. King. First edition paperback, by the way. And, he talks about how the church needs to speak up with regards to issues of injustice. And he talks about in particular how the church needs to do so. Because if it does not use its prophetic voice, if it does not use its prophetic zeal that has been given, then all it's really going to do is become an irrelevant social club, and that's it. Now, I don't know what that looks like for every believer or every church. But I'm asking my brothers and sisters, as you listen to this Saturday Spiel today, some questions to think about. Who have you shared this gospel with? And I don't mean shared with as in giving them a tract or, holding up a sign. Like, let's do away with that. Because honestly, I'm not a fan of holding up signs on a street corner, and I'm not a fan of passing out tracts. Now, some people may get mad at me for that, but if you think about it, the mixed multitude in Exodus followed the children of Israel because they saw what God did on their own, and they followed Israel. At least that's what seems to be insinuated by the text. Solomon in his prayer, when he dedicated the temple, talked about how people would come from other nations when what? When they hear about your great name, he says to God. When people from other nations hear about your great name and come to you, and they pray before you in this place, which was Solomon's temple, then he asked that God would hear them. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he knew he wasn't worthy, first of all, because he was a Gentile, even though he had built a synagogue. He was a God-fearing man, yes. But it was the faith that he stepped out in, as well as the faith of his servants, for the healing that had happened to the men whom he cared about. And in the book of Acts, we see people during Pentecost, during what is also known as Shavuot, the Feast of the First Fruits, coming to the disciples. Why? Because they heard the rushing wind, they heard them speaking in their own language, and they came on their own to see what in the world was going on. So I guess the real question for everyone today is, do you as an individual believer and does your church live and speak and love in such a way that people who don't know God or people who may have walked away from God are curious to know why you have such joy? Are people that are around you curious as to why your church is strong and why it is not only loved by its members of the congregation, but why it is also a place where even people who may not believe in God say, you know what? I may not believe in God, but I respect this church. Because they got love, they care about the community, and they care about me, even though we don't share the same beliefs. Let those questions sink into your heart. And may you take this time to consider and to ask God, what would you have me do? Who would you have me serve? And what are the divine appointments you would have for me this day? That's my Saturday spiel for this week. Hope everybody's blessed. Take care now. Bye-bye.